Hello and welcome to SaltWire today for Friday, December 30th. I'm your host, Kate Walker. One man has been charged after a stabbing in Halifax last night. Police say around 7:45 they were called to an injured man in the area of 3600 block of Joseph Howe Drive. Officers found 3 men who had been stabbed by a man who was known to them. The suspect left the area before police got there. All 3 victims were taken to hospital for non-life-threatening injuries. 30-year-old Khadga Bahadur Mukaya was scheduled to appear in Halifax Provincial Court today to face 3 counts of assault with a weapon, 2 counts of aggravated assault, and 1 count of possession of a dangerous weapon. Halifax airport officials were so worried about passengers being angry for being bumped from a flight to Florida that they called for RCMP backup from Lower Sackville. WestJet was about to tell more than 40 people they couldn't fly because the airline had overbooked the flight. By the time they told families they couldn't board, 8 police officers were there to escort them from the building. A spokesperson for the airport said they called for extra officers because passengers had been rude and unruly leading up to Christmas after other delays and cancellations. Police wouldn't say why so many officers were there for a single flight, but a retired RCMP officer who spoke with SaltWire called it a huge overreaction that likely made matters worse. Protesters gathered in Halifax last night ahead of the World Juniors game to call out Hockey Canada for inaction on sexual violence. They held their signs up outside the Scotiabank Centre an hour ahead of the Canada versus Austria game.
Well, this started back at Council when we realized that the World Juniors were coming here, and we wondered what was in place to address the sexual violence, the history of sexual violence in the hockey culture.
Junior hockey players have been the subject of sexual assault investigations by police 15 times since 1989, and local police departments are currently investigating sexual assault allegations from the 2003 World Junior Tournament in Halifax and from 2018 in London, Ontario, that also involved members of Canada's World Junior team. No one has been charged in the incidents. She says that change could be through training and funding for women's shelters and agencies that work with victims of sexual assault. One man in Dartmouth has opened a traditional Jamaican grocery store in honor of his late grandmother. Sean Montague is the owner behind Gloria's International Grocery Store on Portland Street. He grew up helping his grandmother Gloria in her store in Jamaica and was inspired to start his own when he saw the need for Jamaican culture and cuisine in HRM.
I started off selling these things out of my car. I would drive around, and the meeting new people and the excitement each time he would deliver something is like that triggered me to say, oh, we need a store. We need somewhere where they can walk in and get these stuff.
His grandmother passed away just before he settled on the concept for his business, but her legacy will live on here at this store.
One of the things that she taught me the most about operating a store and a business overall is to always be true to your customers. You know, she was always passionate about helping.
To mitigate supply chain issues, a business was also started back in Jamaica, where products come in fresh straight from the farm. Instead of putting them in a container, he uses air freight to import them faster to Canada. If you don't have any plans this New Year's Eve, the Halifax Regional Municipality is inviting you to its annual live New Year's Eve celebrations from 9:30 to 12:30 at Grand Parade. The free event will include live performances and the annual fireworks finale. Halifax Transit will be offering free extended bus and Alderney ferry service from 6 p.m. onwards tomorrow night. A long-standing tradition on New Year's Day, the Herring Cove Polar Bear Dip has been canceled now for a 3rd year in a row due to a lack of volunteers, COVID, and flu season. The event has been going on for more than 20 years, where people ring in the new year by jumping off the wharf into the freezing cold water. While there is no organized event, some people still plan to jump and raise funds for Feed Nova Scotia. It's time for another edition of the Wine of the Week with SaltWire sommelier Mark DeWolf. Whether you're planning on hosting a dinner or heading out, Mark has just the wine to usher in the new year.
Happy New Year, almost Happy New Year. You know, New Year's Eve is close. So let's talk about a great wine to enjoy on New Year's Eve. You know, sometimes you have big parties, but sometimes it's a more intimate event. So you just have your closest friends, your closest family. And you don't need, you know, a big bottle of wine. Sometimes you just want to have for 2, and a half bottle will do. Or, I mean, I am a sommelier, so maybe for me it's for one. But I think about, for New Year's Eve, having a bit of a style of wine that's easy to consume. You don't have to think too hard about it. And this is a kind of wine, this Prosecco from Villa Sandy, that you can feel good about buying. They use solar energy, and they use a canal that runs through the property to not only produce electricity, but to cool the tanks and help create humidity in the cellar. And they really committed to biodiversity and sustainability. So you can feel good about this little Prosecco, not only in terms of what it does for the environment, but also just in terms of its flavor profile. Really hits that Prosecco character. Fresh fruit, pear, citrus, not too heavy, a little bit, that hint of sweetness that's just really appealing, and not too dry. So think about for serving, enjoy it on its own with some seafood appetizers. But this is the kind of style of wine that doesn't mind being put into a cocktail. So if you want to make a great cocktail, this is the one to use. So this week for New Year's, I'm going to have Villa Sandy Prosecco.
And you can find more of Mark's wine tips and cooking classes in the Wine and Dine section of saltwire.com. It's time now for a glimpse of today's Thinking Out Loud with Sheldon McLeod. Today, Sheldon is speaking with actor and author Mark Critch.
And did you get to say everything you wanted to your father? Or are you getting a chance to say some of it in a much more clear way through these characters?
Well, it's, the way it was, like with the show, Dad was like that. Dad very reserved, like, you didn't hear I love you. You know what I mean? It wasn't that generation. I was like, okay, whatever. But Dad was never anything but supportive. And he never said, you're not going to be an actor. What are you, crazy? You want to be a comedian? Get out of it. He suggests a few things. Like he took me for a big walk behind our house. He said, Andy Richards could get you a job researching deeds. And I was like, no, I think I'm going to be a comedian, Dad. And he's like, okay, well, tell your mother I tried. Like, so that was as much of him, like, not trying to take away my dreams, but go. That's what he's basically the only way he ever said, this is crazy, And I think people always ask me, what would your parents think today? And I think they'll be equally parts mortified and equally parts proud, because you're talking about, things. And, if they were both alive, I don't know if I'd be able to do the show in the same way. There's probably things I wouldn't talk about, and probably things I wouldn't reference, So it is a love letter, to them. And I think like anybody, I think we all wish we were a bit older when we were younger. And so you could soak up more of what was going on, but also, let people know what they mean to you. And I think at the time, you probably don't even realize how important it is and how much of that hand on your back got you up the hill.
And for Sheldon's full conversation, head to the opinion section of saltwire.com. On to weather now. Our weather specialist, Alistair Alders, is off this week. We're going to have a look now at our 7-day board. Mostly cloudy and 9 degrees for your New Year's Eve. Rain expected Sunday and 10 degrees. A mix of sun and cloud and 1 degree New Year's Day and more rain to start the work week. A light wintry mix Thursday and snow showers for your Friday. That's all for now. For more extended video and full online articles, stay tuned to saltwire.com. And you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. I'm your host, Kate Walker. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you back here Tuesday.